So we've got a few things to manage your power, but power also plays out in the heads and the behaviours of your team as well. So for people at the other end of the power spectrum, low power creates more hypervigilance. So that means it's putting people on high alert for threats. They're more likely to trip into sort of fight or flight. It also makes them really attuned to the emotional states of their superiors, i.e. you, because they need to sort of navigate that social landscape to retain their status. In short, they're a bit nervous and they really want to keep you happy. Evidence also suggests that people emotionally repress and express themselves less when they're in those low power positions. So not only are they feeling more stress and fear, but they're actually showing and saying less. So, as leaders, we really need to lift our teams and invite them into the space where they can speak openly and honestly without that fear, without that threat, and feel that escalation and challenge, even if it's in disagreement with you, will not result in negative judgment. One thing is to open the I'm wrong door for them. So what does that mean? Basically, our power makes it quite scary for people to tell us that we haven't got it right. But if we can do that bit for them, if we can open the door that says, I'm wrong, for them, it's easier that they can just step through. So that means questions like, what do you think I am missing here? So rather than having to take that frightening step of challenging you and saying, oh gosh, I think you're missing something, you've already done the challenge. You said, what am I missing? All they have to do is fill in the detail. You've pulled the door open, they just have to step through. Another one might be, okay, so this is how I might do it, but I'm not 100% confident I can get things wrong. What would you do differently? Again, you're doing that heavy lifting of saying that you might be wrong, which they might be more scared to do, which makes it really easy for them to open up, to share their opinions and their perspectives and what they understand. Secondly, you need to overcome that instinct that many people have to remain quiet if they don't have power or status. You need to find the ways to get them to open up. And there's two stages to this. Firstly, ask yourself, who hasn't got power in this room, or who haven't I heard from? Just identifying who those people are, who might find it hardest to speak up, is a really, really big step, because you can then ask them directly. If you're going to speak to a room, the chances are the people with lower status are just very instinctively not going to speak up. They can hide behind everybody else with a bit more power than them. So whether it's patients, whether it's healthcare assistants, whether it's nurses, it doesn't matter. If you ask people directly, you're much more likely to get their perspective and that vital information. Once you've kind of found the people to speak to and engage them in that chat, what you're going to need to do is to support them to open up. People with less power tend to give shorter, less detailed answers that we could quickly dismiss if we weren't paying attention, right? So we need to give them a little bit of a nudge to open up. There's something called keyword questioning, which is a really, really great way of doing this. What you do is you find the keyword in whatever they've said, or just turn what they've said into a question. So if you ask someone, what do you think we should do? And they say, not sure. You literally just say back, not sure? And then they might say something like, yeah, I don't know if we should be escalating now, or if it'd be better to see how it plays out. And again, you find the question, well, why might we escalate now, etc., etc. All you're doing is you're taking what they're saying, building questions from it, starting from that kind of scared, power-aware, very short answer, and getting more detail that can be so vital in those escalation practices. So another thing we need to take into account is that we often take what we hear at face value, but very often there's actually a lot underneath the surface, particularly regarding power, that can change how other people are experiencing it, right? So if we ask someone how they're feeling and what they respond to is very brief, because what they hear is, this person is really important and I should only share absolutely urgent issues. And that's what can happen when you have power. Now, one way of breaking through this is to paraphrase and check understanding. Repeating back what you've understood they've said and invite them to correct that assumption. So let's say we're asking someone about any concerns they have about a patient, right? So they might reply, oh, the patient's told me they feel a bit off, but I had a quick look and I have doubts it's worth escalating. You then respond, okay, so if I understand, they've explained they feel something isn't right, but they haven't hit the bar for escalation. Now what you're doing there is you're listening, you name what you assume they're saying, but open up to those layers that you might have misunderstood, invite them to fill in those gaps. All of that is a vital part of getting the information right. Now with this, there are actually very few tools I've come across that improve listening, like the paraphrasing and checking understanding. It validates people because it shows that you're really interested in understanding them. It stops you from making assumptions, and it creates that further detail, that more of that conversation. The more you do this with your team, the more your team will do it with their patients, and then you have this whole collective of people doing really good listening, not making assumptions, and that is an incredible tool for the kind of information that's necessary for really good escalation. These are fairly simple, surprisingly powerful tools that as a leader, you should be using as much as possible. So whilst these are great reactions to the power dynamics at play, great ways of handling those dynamics, there's actually a lot that you can do prior to having to react. So in the next video, we're going to talk about the habits and rituals that create the psychological safety that create good escalation culture.